Restaurant Unstoppable. Inspire, empower, and transform the industry. You were just starting to like unpackage like how the vision was coming together, and I mean, what was going from? I mean, you shared like the origin of what you were thinking, the food you were eating, and how that influenced the Meatball Shop. But as far as like from a business perspective, what was going through your mind? Why was a Meatball Shop the right move?
Ground meat is economical.
Yeah.
Ground meat is economical. And so you can use the less desirable cuts of meat of all different animals and grind it and season it, and it's going to taste delicious.
Yeah.
And so that was sort of like a focus for us. We wanted to work with ground meat and then just vegetables and keep it really simple. And, you know, the idea of customizability was a big one. No one had actually taken a stab at doing a restaurant, a meatball concept.
This is 2008. Before. Reminder for people as you're having these conversations, right? 2008, 2009.
2009. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so we wanted to create something unique and something completely customizable. And you know, we were in a recession, so we said it's got to be recession proof. So how can we create something that people aren't gonna be afraid to walk through the doors? So if you make the meatballs $6 a bowl, you know. It's economical.
Yeah.
And so that was sort of like we were thinking about volume, you know, like obviously quality was a massive part of the plan for us. We wanted to use the best of, we didn't want to use filet, you know, like tenderloin and New York strip and ribeye. We wanted to use like beef shoulder clod and like some of the bigger pieces of meat that we can grind, but from the best farms and from the best resources. So quality was a big deal for us for our protein and our produce. But we just said, you know, we're going to make it inexpensive and we're going to go for volume. We're going to try to feed as many people as we can and really, really push the volume play in this business.
So from understanding that from day one, how did you build the business to do volume?
Well, initially it was going to be a counter service restaurant.
Okay.
And when we built the restaurant, we had no idea what we were doing. We had no idea how to design a counter service restaurant. And so we opened up the doors to the Meatball Shop on February 9th of 2010 to 250 people online because our publicist really drummed, you know, they did a great job for us. And it was an absolute nightmare. It was a complete fail. It did not work. We had not enough seats in the restaurant to service the amount of people, and people were waiting online with, you know, trays of meatballs, nowhere to sit. And that night, Daniel and I looked at each other, and I took the whole entire staff of the restaurant, which was counter staff, and I took them all and I said, ladies and gents, welcome to the world of full service dining. Changed the whole entire business model that night, and it was the best decision we made at the time.
Yeah, let's shelf that. I want to come back to that, but I still want to, I think there's a lot to unpackage with getting everything together, right? Like you have the vision, you know what you want to do. I mean, was there anything in the back of your mind just thinking like the power of just doing one thing really well? Like, was that, because I think you might have been ahead of the curve on that a little bit. Because, I mean,
you know,
Chipotle's look, around at this point. Like there's some things like that bubbling up. But was that...
Look, you know, as being a barman for so many years, people would always ask me my favorite burger. They would ask me my favorite sushi, my favorite slice of pizza. Ramen started to really take shape in those days. And so, you know, it was like kind of like the same time as Momofuku. And people were asking me like, oh, what's my ramen spot? And, you know, I would say to myself, like, if somebody asked me where to go get a Meatball Hero or like, where's the best, you know, where's a great meatball spot or, you know, like I wouldn't know where to send them.
I got to give my boys over at 8 Steve over at 8. Are you familiar with 8?
No.
It's an app that's only in New York City, and it does exactly what you explained. Is whatever you're in the mood for, you put the title of like the meal, like meatball or pizza or burger, and it has experts and like chefs from the city voting on their favorite spots. And based off of where you're where you are geographically, it will tell you where the closest burger is. That's great. It's 8 app. Only on iOS, past guests in the show. And the reason why I love this company is because they are putting the power back in the restaurateur. You get food, or you get customers if your food's good, you know, which is what it should be. if we're like the number 8.
Oh, 8. Got it.
It app.
It's
a pretty great tool. If any of you guys are in New York City or going to New York, break out that app.
Yeah, so people started to ask me those questions, and I really didn't. I thought about the meatball sub, the meatball hero, the like New York iconic dish, right? Like, everybody's like, oh, Meatball Shop, Italian food. And I'm like, no, 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 Meatball Shop's New York. Like, it's New York at its truest. It's really. I grew up eating a meatball hero at my local pizza joint, right? Like, that's typical for New York City people. You got a meatball sub at your deli, your local pizza place. Anyway, we wanted to create the best meatball sandwich in the city.
Yeah.
And that was our goal.
Yeah.
I put in at that point, I'd saved up, I think, around $18,000. Daniel had 20 grand. And we begged, borrowed, and stealed from everyone in our family. And then I put the business plan, because once Dan and I started going, we started cooking these big meatball dinners at my apartment in Brooklyn for all of our friends on Sundays. And we had these massive meatball dinners for a couple of months just to get feedback. And we built the model, we built the business plan, we built the menu, we had it all ready to go. And then I dropped the business plan in front of 20 regulars at the restaurant that I was at. And I think 12 of them cut me a check.
Nice.
And so we raised the money.
How much do you say you needed at this point? What was the number you told yourself you needed?
We told ourselves that we needed $400,000 to do it. And it's very different today. $400,000 gets you like a meatball. But that's what we needed to get the restaurant open. And so Daniel and I built the restaurant ourselves. We found a location. I was very specific. Daniel had been out of the city for a while, and I'd been living hard in the city. So I knew exactly where I wanted to put this restaurant. I wanted it to be south of Houston, north of Delancey, east of Allen, and west of Essex.
Why that area?
Because the Lower East Side was on fire.
Mm-hmm. What made it on fire?
It was where everybody went to eat and drink.
So when you're looking for a spot that's on fire, like what are the elements you're looking for?
In terms of restaurant?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, location, right? Like, you can have an amazing chef. You can have an amazing restaurateur. You can have an incredible wine list or cocktail list and that is great in the launching of a business. People will come, they will. But for sustainability and longevity, location does really matter. And the hardest part in the restaurant business is to get new customers, new guests. It's like a very, very difficult thing to do. Introduce it to new people, right? And the way like McDonald's and Wendy's and, Kentucky Fried Chicken do it is they advertise like, they spend millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars on advertising. Small little restaurants don't do that. Mm-hmm. Now we have social media, which definitely makes it better, but it's really hard to advertise and market in the restaurant business unless you have a massive amount of cash. And so location is really sort of your marketing expense. So if you're going to take a 2,000 square foot space in the middle of nowhere, you're going to pay a lot less than if you take a 2,000 square foot space on Main and Main. And that is actually marketing money. And so, I knew that I wanted to be in a good location. We found a little restaurant that was a little off the beaten path. It was like a block and a half away from Main on Main. And the deal was so funny how we got the deal. I literally begged the broker who wanted to charge us 15 grand for the broker fee, and I sat with him outside, and I put on a show, and I cried, and I said, "Look, man, you got to just let us do it for $7,500, man. We want to do this deal so bad." And Daniel was there. It's like classic story. And
was he trying to keep it in because he knew you're hamming it up intentionally?
I think he really did believe me. I went out to LA initially to be an actor, and so I had a little bit of that in me, but. Yeah, so we ended up getting the keys to the restaurant the night before Thanksgiving in 2009, and Daniel and I did not hire any contractors. We did the restaurant ourselves. We literally put every single nail into the wood there. We laid the floor. We did the whole thing. I remember it was a noodle spot, and they had a wok station that was up against the walk-in in the back. And when we pulled out the wok station, there was about a 2.5 inch thick layer of grease caked on the wall that had been like petrified. They had never cleaned it, ever, not once. And so I was there with a chisel and just like trying to shave it off that walk-in. And they had, for some reason, they had cemented the tables into the floor. So the high top bar tables were cemented into the floor. So I mean, I remember just being down on the floor with a grinder for just days, just trying to grind the tables out of this.
Did you just like saw them off and then grind them down?
I basically hit them I grind them. They were steel. They were like thick steel table bases that they had literally poured concrete over.
That's crazy.
And so I just had to grind them off. So I cut them with a grinder, and then I just had to like grind them down. Yeah, I mean, it was amazing. I got a really cool story about how we got all the wood for the first few restaurants. I reached out to my buddy, and I said to him, hey man, he was in the construction business, residential. And I said, hey, do you have any old wood that's just lying around, like old floor beams, something that we can use? And he said, it's interesting. Go over to 3rd Street between 2nd and Bowery. I know a guy who's demoing a townhouse there, a really old, cool townhouse, and they're throwing away a ton of the floorboards. They're completely gutting it. And so Daniel and I rented a truck, showed up, and sure enough, there were hundreds of these unbelievably beautiful, 30 foot long or 20 foot long floor joists that were like 3 inches thick, old heart pine wood that they were just throwing into a dumpster. Wow. So we filled up this truck. My uncle's a carpenter. We took all the wood out to my uncle's shop in Queens, and he made all of the bars. He made the bar tops, all the tabletops out of this wood for the first 3 restaurants.
I was going to say, did you get enough wood for the first couple of restaurants?
Yeah,
right?
We did.
That's crazy.
And the New York Post actually did a really cool piece on it.
What's going through my mind listening to you share this is just the power of, putting it out there. What if there's a will, there's a way, right? If you ask yourself, how can I do this? That frontal lobe just kicks into front, like the hyper mode, and just like gets creative. Like, who can I reach out to? Who can I ask?